everybody. I'm Marilyn, CEO and founder of Cosmic Centaurs and the host of our weekly live video series called Centaur Stage. We're in the midst of our second season, all about the magic of teams and what makes teams cohesive, high-performing, and happy. And to better understand the magic of teams, we'll be covering 4 different chapters, and we're just about nearing the end of our first chapter, which is all about team dynamics. So if you're interested in learning more about how teams interact, how they communicate, how they address conflict and connect with one another, you've come to the right place. Myself and some remarkable guests go live on LinkedIn every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. UAE time to share insights, experiences, and perspectives on this topic. And before we begin, do show us some love and give this video a like. Of course, we always encourage you to share your thoughts, react to what we're talking about, ask questions in the comment section, and we'll make sure that Munir gets a chance to answer a few, if not all of them. Our guest today is a returning speaker, David Munir Nabti, or Munir in this part of the world, who was one of our incredible guests in the Future of Teams conference warm-up special, and he came and spoke to us about how he leads his team even during the most challenging of times. Munir has always supported economic transformation efforts via entrepreneurship tech, social entrepreneurship, and public sector innovation. He co-founded Bloom, an organization that runs online and hybrid entrepreneurship programs in 7 MENA countries and builds tools for SMEs and accelerators and other project-based learning programs. He's also affiliated with the Alt City nonprofit organization, which launched in 2015, with related efforts going back all the way to 2008. And since 2016, these efforts have engaged over 400 enterprises and helped top SMEs raise over $5 million in follow-on financing. Their programs include collaborations with the EU, the UNICEF, Global Forum on Migration and Development, Asfari Foundation, Al-Fanar, the UK SCO, Swiss SDC, telecom, cell providers, banks, Techstars, and universities, including MIT, Stanford, AUB, and the Lebanese University. He graduated from UC Berkeley in political science and international economics and previously worked for the UN, Stanford University, Google, and the UC Berkeley Service Learning Research and Development Center. And trust me, despite his incredible bio, doesn't do him any justice because he's such a wonderful human being. Munir, I am so grateful to have you joining us again today.
Flattered here. Thanks, Marilyn, and good to see you.
Yeah, it's really nice to see you. I always look forward to our conversations, and I'm really happy that you agreed to join us today. Thank you for taking the time out.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Well, these are such important topics. Exciting updates, actually, since we shared that bio with you, is we're up to working with around 500 or 550 or 600, startups or small businesses. We've been really growing our efforts, and we got some word that some of our teams have mobilized additional funds and grown. So I think it's around $6 or $7 million now raised post-program. So exciting growth. And we're hopefully going to be announcing our 8th and 9th countries in the next month or two.
Wow,
in terms of where we're working to support entrepreneurship efforts.
That's so beautiful. It must be really rewarding to see how much impact you've been able to do with your team.
It's exciting, of course. When things are so difficult, when things are so difficult, we'd always love to think, how can we be more supportive and more impactful? So always got to balance that aspect of the ambition and wanting to do more and wanting to be of greater service, especially when times are really challenging. But also, this is actually something we've been chatting about on our team as well, is how to remember to find opportunities to celebrate, because there are very frequently exciting things going on with our team, with our efforts, and with other teams. And sometimes in the midst of the whirlwind, we forget to celebrate. So
yes, yeah. I've been told the same thing by my team. So now I make an extra conscious effort. Maybe I'll share with you my tip for not forgetting.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sounds good.
I'll start maybe then by introducing today's topic for everybody. Let's kind of recap what we've spoken about so far in this first chapter of season 2. Connie Hadley joined us and she talked to us about what makes a team a team. What are the fundamentals for us to say this group of people is now a team? Samit's joined us to help us learn about how we can measure data around team performance, team cohesion, team happiness, and how to leverage that data in organizations to truly support the outcome of teams. And in our most recent episode with Sylvia, she shared her experience on how do you manage a global distributed team. But we asked Munir to come and talk to us about nurturing teams. You know, when we invited Munir for this, some of his colleagues were also in the thread and the emails, and their reaction was, Munir is the best boss in the world. And we really know from every interaction we've had with him that Munir, you try to put joy and celebration, despite what you say, into everything that you do. And that's why we thought you'd be such a great person to come and talk to us about how you keep teams happy and motivated and engaged, how you provide purpose, and how you use values and learning in order to create that cohesion. You know, we know how passionate you are and how passionate I am about the happiness at work, and we thought it would be a great moment to come here, and you always put a smile on my face, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how you do it with your teams. Of course, there's so much data that shows how much being happy and engaged at work can help stay productive. In the most conservative study, a 2019 study by Oxford, we found that workers are 13% more productive when they're happy, but we've seen estimations as high as 21% more productive. So yes, not happiness isn't just, you know, a wonderful feeling to have, which in and of itself should be alone to justify the effort, but it can also help organizations truly have more impact. And the thing is that technology, you know, has been such a great facilitator of that, you know, during the pandemic and in the time post it. But while technology provides the infrastructure for connecting, the foundation must be something else. It must be a culture dedicated to the human experience. And we really wanted you to come and talk to us about that. And so I'm going to start us off with our first question for you. Talk to me about the importance of purpose and values. Of course, you come from a space where purpose and impact are such important elements of your work every day. And in an HBR article by Sally Blount, we read this nice quote, and I'll kick us off with that. Purpose is the key to motivation, and motivated employees are the key to realizing your purpose. Get this symbiotic relationship right, and your organization will thrive. So tell us about Bloom's purpose and all the different organizations that you support and how you make sure that your team members are aligned to it.
Yeah, great question, and such an important one. It's definitely something from the start of not even the interviewing process, but when we are thinking about the positions and thinking about how we do outreach for our team, how we promote for the new positions, how we communicate our mission and our values online. We want to attract people who are similarly mission oriented, and not just that they want to work towards a positive impact in the world or in this region, but that they're really excited about what we are also working on, sort of our approach and our objectives, and the vision of, if we succeed, the positive impact we can have. And so from the very beginning, we want to try to build that in and find people who not just fit that, but that can also contribute to that. And we really do see, you know, even our values and our mission as evolving as people come on board, and we want to be dynamic, and as the world changes, as our organization changes, we want to keep growing and learning and evolving with each new input. And the team that comes on board is definitely one of those most important inputs. We don't just want them to comply with our vision of the founders. We want them to come and help us all collectively learn and grow.
And how do you practically engage? You know, you mentioned your values. How do you practically engage, whether it's in the recruiting process or in the ongoing, you know, team life? How do you engage people around those values?
Look, the aspect of celebrations is an important one, and really, so trying to think through how we keep the impact front and center. Now, we've been working on implementing a new process with our team as well, and as the team has grown, we want to make sure that, we want to balance this aspect of all moving in the same direction, but also empowering the creativity and individuality of each person, and really helping each person experiment more, have multiple leaders on the team, not just one leader, but multiple leaders. But then also we want everyone to actually
I think we might have lost Munir. I know he's in Lebanon, and so his internet connection isn't as brilliant as we would want it to be. So no problem. We're going to wait for him. And in the meantime, maybe what I can do is I can share a little bit about what we as a team do to celebrate. So sometimes when you're a founder or a team leader, you're so much in the rush of what needs to be done next that you don't realize that you haven't taken a moment to actually take stock of what you've experienced together and what you've accomplished. And, I know Tala brought it up with me once. She's like, you don't celebrate enough. And I took that to heart because I try to think of myself as a very positive and celebratory person. And actually, the simple trick that works for us is that on the one hand, we have a monthly team time where we make sure that we bring up like things that we want to celebrate, and it doesn't have to be, work-related things. It can just be personal. And then on the other hand, we also have a card in our daily stand-up every day to remember to share, important announcements or news. And that's how we keep the celebration going. So almost every day it's brought to our mind that we should think about that. And so one of the reasons actually why we asked Munir to come is because when you're leading from a place like Lebanon, which is where Munir is based and a lot of his teams are, and also a lot of the enterprises that they support, there's an added layer of how do you stay upbeat? How do you keep people focused on the goal? How do you make sure that the difficult reality doesn't take precedent and doesn't take the stage. And when you're doing work for impact, it's so important because not only are you doing it in a difficult place, but you're also thinking about supporting other teams. Munir was mentioning earlier that they will have now worked with over 550 different teams. And so their impact isn't just with their own, but really with those 550 teams and everybody that they would be impacting. And that's why we thought that having him come on board and talk to us about it was so important. And right on cue, he's back. Let me add him. Hello.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
One of the issues of working from home, and someone called and then it cut my internet.
No worries at all.
Goodness
I managed
gracious.
to bridge us through to here.
Perfect.
So,
where are we at then?
You were talking to us about how you make sure that everybody has space for experimentation and has space to kind of explore their own ideas, and also how the fact that having multiple leaders is helpful.
Okay, awesome. So there are various systems that different organizations use for this. Some called, OKRs, the objectives and key results, or dev teams use different methodologies, whether Scrum and burn down charts or Kanban, etc. For our organization, so we tried various things before, and some of them were either too complex or used lingo that people didn't understand, or they weren't quite set up for small teams. And so we're using this process called the 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's based on a really helpful book. And then there are a lot of examples out there. Now, to be honest, it's also a system that is kind of optimized for bigger companies. Right now, we're at 17 people plus about 8 full-timers, part-timers. And so we're making some adaptations for our smaller team, but we're working to set in the foundations for enabling really positive growth as we hopefully continue to grow. But a key part of this process is really just ensuring that everyone is clear about the main objective of the organization. And then that trickles down to, well, what's the main objective for each team? And then that trickles down to what's the main objective and like the key activities for each individual. And we really want to create these opportunities for clarity and more celebrations. We basically want to have it be clear enough that at the end of each week and each month and each quarter, as people can say like, yes, I was clear, like this is, what I was really excited to accomplish. And I did some experiments and I tried these different things and I have flexibility, but I achieved, hopefully surpassed or achieved, or maybe some challenge, got close, whatever, but we can celebrate that and then think about how we keep learning and building from there. And so again, like this aspect of keeping everyone aligned, but enabling more creativity and independence are key things that we are working to embrace, and then see how we can really support our team to build sort of more structurally.
So we have a question here from the audience from Anwar. He's asking, do you think that team members need to have the same personal values as the team and as the organization?
Look, it's a great question. And the answer is yes and no. To some extent, I think that it's really helpful. It's really important that there are shared sets of values, especially when it comes down to really core basic foundational values: respect, support, positivity, not being negative, not demeaning others. These kinds of things. Not being racist, not being sexist. Like, there's some of these basic foundational ones which are just incredibly important. Now, beyond that, I think there's some organizational values that I think are also really great, really important for people to share. So they have this sort of shared experience and shared support. But then beyond that, to some extent, it's not necessary that all values are shared. And actually, I think it's better that they're not all the same. Having diversity on the team, people bringing in these different opinions, these different life experiences, these different cultural, upbringing experiences are really, really helpful, especially if you're trying to build an organization, a company that has relevance in many different cultures and places. Then having these people part of the team is really helpful. And you even want to nurture that. You want to learn and see how that helps everything become richer, because of some of those differences. But as long as there's enough of that shared element so that you actually can be a really positive team working together as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think if you only have people on the team who are perfectly aligned on their values, then you really miss out on the value of that diversity and of seeing things from different perspectives. And whatever you do, your clients, your customers, your users, they themselves are incredibly diverse. And so leveraging diversity within your team is so important. I think also, on that note about the organizational values, so we have our organizational values written down. We, as young companies go, we wrote them down one day as we were preparing to onboard someone, and Tala and I sat down and were like, what are our values? Let's think about this, and kind of just did it really quickly, but they did ring very true, and they continue to ring true until today. But something that we do, with every kind of new wave of new joiners, and we did that one in the summer, we had four new team members, is that we actually sit down and we explain, we start with just saying what the value is, what the word is, maybe one sentence associated with it. And then we ask people, what does this mean to you? Because sometimes when you say, okay, one of our values is curiosity. Okay, great. What does that mean to you, Munir? How are you curious? How do you express that? We don't have to express it in the same way. Creativity, for example, is one of our values, but it doesn't mean we all have to be graphic designers. People are very afraid of some of these words. They don't know how to appropriate them. So we do spend the time, and sometimes we debate. There's one of our values that, caused a great big debate, which is excellence. People felt pressured by it. And that was really interesting to hear that and to understand why, and to also explain why it wasn't going to go away because it was so important, but what it meant and what the expectation was. And I think having that open conversation around these things, especially, maybe that becomes more difficult to do it when there's 3,000 of us, but building towards that 3,000 of us piece is making sure that the people who are there in the early days do get to take part in these conversations and are able to explain to whoever comes next why things are the way that they are, but also with the freedom to make them evolve. I really resonate with that, and to allowing space for dialogue. Rhea has a question for you here. She says that you have multiple leaders of the team. She's wondering how you achieve that, and how do you make others feel like a leader? Because there's always the question also of the founder versus all the others. Like, how have you been able to grow past just being the founder?
Yeah, for sure. And I think now we're at this slightly odd interim phase of an organization. 17 full-time, 8 part-time. It's too big for everyone to be like closely working with each other, but it's not big enough to have like very separate departments and have, vice presidents and stuff like that. So we're working to see how we do make sure that everyone is still well connected, but then also having these we're actually exploring different names of it, but between teams within the organization and then clusters, but some people don't like the word cluster. So we're trying to think like, okay, so we have these sort of subgroupings in the organization, and we really do want to empower the people to be leaders and helping to cultivate more experiments, more growth, more development, and hopefully soon more hires in each of these different teams and clusters, even though right now some of the teams are literally teams of one. Whereas that team, hopefully in a year, would be a team of 5 or a team of 10, but now it's a team of 1. So how do we help develop, like that person can be a leader, even though it is a team of 1, and then help to sort of build momentum to help the organization grow. Now, key parts of this are, I think one of the hardest things that organizations deal with is around clarity and around delegation. And when you're really small, then it often happens, but it's often necessary for the founder or the co-founders to be working in all of the different areas. But then as you grow, you both don't want to, like, it's not possible for the leader, for the co-founder or founders to be involved in everything. But then that actually takes away from the abilities of the others. If you're hiring people who are good, you really do want to nurture and support their strengths and realize that they can do things that are better than you can do in that domain. And so how do you help make sure that there's that clarity for them to be able to act, again, individually within the teams, and then keeping everybody aligned? I also, again, it's still in process, but I told our team about maybe 2 months ago that since we are getting to this size, and I was getting so caught up, I was spending so much time in each of these different teams and clusters, supporting, but also maybe meddling in some of the stuff that they were doing, is I told them that I'm going to work over the next couple of months to spend 80% less time with the team members on their work, because they're great and I want to support them and help them really grow into that space so that they can lead those efforts. And meanwhile, with any organization, there's a bunch of stuff that's not getting done. And those things we either can hire people for, but some of them I, as one of the co-founders, I need to do. And if I'm spending that time with them, then I'm not doing that stuff that really only I can do to help the organization. So it's both an act of generosity for them and being like, look, you guys are great. I want to help you. I want to get out of your way. How can I support you? While also saying, if this is our collective effort, then the best way I can support is by doing things that are not getting done.
Yeah, I think it's a great lesson and a very difficult one, especially when you've been there from the early days to kind of realize the moment where you have to give up something. And I think we don't give leaders enough credit for finding the moment where you have to do that, because I think leaders can stifle their organizations by continuing to want to own so many of the pieces, but we don't realize how hard it is to let go. And I always think that, and discussed it a lot with my team, to say that, like, I'm your leader, but I'm also part of the team. And you must not forget that I go through the same emotions as you do, that I feel defeated, that I feel victorious, that I feel whatever. And it's not easier for me than it is for you to do any of these things. And I think that for me, that's always been a big fight. You know, I don't like hierarchy to become a relationship where the person in a position of, you know, hierarchical power then becomes perceived as, you know, not someone who feels things in the same way. And I think staying open on that too, expressing how hard it is to let go sometimes, is really important. Benny's asking, speaking of inverting roles, Benny's asking if you have any stories about the time where you learned something about leadership from your team.
Oh yeah, regularly. Look, there's some of these, I guess, core underlying processes or philosophies that I think are super important. and that we're trying to continually reflect on and improve on. Things like learning, feedback. We regularly ask for feedback from the team. So in one-on-ones, we have a monthly form, like little feedback form that we call the monthly heartbeat, that we try to reflect on and learn from. It's an interesting thing of this balance. I want to spend less time with the team on the team stuff, but I want to be spending more time with them on one-on-ones so that I can be learning more from them, getting feedback, seeing how things are going. How can I and we as an organization support them more? And so just trying to figure out that balance of time is the more that we enable the people on the team so that I can be spending less time on that normal day-to-day work, is the more I can be spending time also listening to them and thinking, how can we keep evolving the organization to support them more? So definitely getting feedback from them, and then trying to see how we cultivate in the organization this aspect of always evolving. There is no aspect of thinking, hey, we got the culture right now, we figured it out, it's perfect, let's just go. One aspect is that the world is constantly evolving, the team is evolving, the situation is evolving, the seasons are evolving, and so you need to keep adapting. Seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. When it starts getting darker, people's moods change, and then how do we respond to that? And then also, that if you figure out whatever is the perfect thing for this time, a month or 3 months later, then that thing is going to be old. It's going to be stagnant. And so how do you keep things sort of fresh and dynamic and really help everyone feel like we're regularly growing and learning? So it is an ongoing process. There is no perfect. There's great for the moment. And then I think perfect is just really being responsive and evolving as life and the team evolves.
Yeah, I think that's something I really wanted to bring up with you as well. Like it sounds to me like what you have is really a learning organization where you guys are really good at kind of not letting things stagnate, at creating and acquiring and internalizing new knowledge and new ways of doing things. And I think that what is required to do that is, you have you were saying it yourself, right? You have a very supportive learning environment. Talk to us about, how do you facilitate learning for your teams? Do you have like clear processes and practices? What are the ways in which you keep yourselves moving and kind of staying aware of your context and learning how to do things in new ways?
Yeah. So for much of this stuff, I consider that we're, at a B level in them. We do have some of these things, but I definitely am excited to keep the process of evolving and to see how we can keep improving and supporting the team more. We do have a regular practice of doing sort of written reviews. We call them daily reviews. We're working on building that habit and seeing how we can sort of incentivize and excite people more and make that more dynamic and helpful for the team. But in that, there's a regular question of, what have you learned recently? And what challenges are you facing? And so for both of these, we want to encourage people to be regularly thinking about what have they been learning, to share it with others, and then to also think of what are the challenges, to think how can we as an organization continue learning and adapting to better support people in those challenges, both professional and outside of work as well, because sometimes, very often, they're related. And if there's a way we can support our team better, then we're excited to see how we can do that. We do have a team learning channel on our Slack. We do regularly discuss it, think about how can, regular reflection sessions after many of our events and our program cycles. We do a reflection and think, how can we keep improving on these things, working to see how we can improve our systems for being data-driven so that it's not just sort of the ad hoc anecdotal learning, but we want to be more data-driven in these processes. And we have supported some of our team in terms of actually doing courses and stuff like that. And we want to be doing more of that stuff. So all of these things are helpful, but we want to see how can we even help them go deeper and support our team more in terms of this aspect of learning. The world is evolving quickly, and for each person, like the work in each domain is evolving, and we want to see how we really can be evolving as fast, or hopefully even faster, than much of that stuff happening in the world, so that we can really be positive contributors to these learning trends, not just reactive to them.
Yeah, I think that's really incredible. And I will call on our audience. If you guys have any rituals or practices that you think work really well in your teams, do leave them in the comments. I think both Munir and I can learn from that. And I'll say something that kind of, I'm going to call it keeps us young at Cosmic, is creating content. Because when you're forced to write something, then you're forced to understand it in ways that you didn't before. And I think that the discipline that we've instaured, discipline, one of our values, by the way, sounds scary when you first hear about it, but actually is quite freeing. The discipline that we've instaured around creating content means that we're constantly learning about new concepts and ideas. And that's my practice that I think has been quite helpful for us. I want to talk to you about something that both you and I are quite passionate about, I think, in potentially in different ways because we're different people, but we share this idea that happiness at work is something that's really important. There's a data point from an A.T. Kearney survey in 2018, and I'm not sure if that will have improved this year, but it says that 90% of respondents say they expect to experience a substantial degree of joy at work, but yet only 37% report that is their actual experience. What are your, share your thoughts with me about happiness at work and why it's important and how you managed to create opportunity for that.
Yeah, such an important one. And we try to think of how to do this regularly, not just in our team, but in our programs, in the entrepreneurship programs that we run, how to make them fun. Not only is it more enjoyable in life, but like you said, people feel more productive and energized at work. People also learn better when they're having fun. It just absorbs into their brain, and we kind of can adapt and benefit from basic learning processes, reading, learning new tools, etc. When we are having fun, it's actually really important as well for some of the things that we found related to entrepreneurship and stress relief, overcoming trauma. These are really important things that are really powerful. Actually, my colleague Bilal did a bit of research with one of our programs that we started a program before the explosion in Beirut, and then it continued after. And there were our programs are often in their different phases. And so some people had continued in our program and some people had not. And so it ended up being a really interesting pool to sort of follow up with. They had done some of our assessments that we use in our sort of data-driven programs. And then Bilal went and did a number of interviews as well with a bunch of those people, and found that humor is really powerful, a really powerful way to deal with trauma and to overcome it, and to think of how can we learn and grow from the experiences that happen to us sometimes that are beyond our control, and to convert them into positive life experiences, things that we can grow from, and not get just sort of brought down by. And so, yeah, we do work to cultivate those things. I think it's also an area, to be honest, where we have room for improvement, because what to say, we're a fully virtual team. We do have some of these activities where sometimes we put on music and celebrate, someone getting married or wonderful things that happen at work. I'm a big fan of putting on some dubki and having some great music as well. And then every once in a while, things like different props as well that we can put on, and just sort of like freshen things up a little bit is great. But we would love to do more and figure out ways to do more of this stuff, even in a virtual environment. Now, we are doing some things in person. We are kind of hybrid. We went on a fun hiking trip last weekend. and did put on a little bit of music and had some fun. But then tomorrow, part of our team is actually flying. We're flying to Istanbul to have a great team retreat and going to do some fun stuff there. And so what is this hybrid aspect? So figuring out ways to build in the fun is great. And we're open to new ideas for this as well. We're doing a bit of brainstorming on our team. We have some ideas. If anyone here who's watching has more ideas for building in fun for virtual teams, please share.
Yeah, we went on a virtual escape the room, experience, and it was great. And I have to say, I was very proud of the team because the diversity really shone through. Different riddles were solved by different people based on like their natural inclinations, and I was very proud because we got all the answers right all the way through from the first try. And I was like,
wow, impressive.
Yeah, I know.
They were making it easy on you folks.
I want to ask you something that I personally reflect a lot about, and wondering how you deal with it as a leader. I think it's it's very easy to not that it's easy, but I mean sometimes you just don't remember how much time has passed since the last time that you did something like that. I think that's true across relationships, not just as a leader of a team, but in a couple, or even as a son or a parent. Like, you do something and it's great, and then actually that's not enough. You have to keep doing it. There's a lot about, well, I guess the discipline of that, sustaining it and making sure that not 2 weeks go by without having a moment like that. Not a month goes by without a moment for reflection and stopping work. And just, how do you personally keep that engine running? And who, do you rely on others for that? Do you have a calendar reminder? Like, how do you make sure that you don't forget how much time has passed?
Yeah, great great point. We do have some things we put in the calendar, these regular repetitions, and we do have some things that we repeat daily habits, some weekly habits, some monthly habits, and various of these things we do put in the calendar. We do regular reminders on Slack, or we put on tasks on Bloom, on the platform that we're building. But the main thing that comes to mind with this as well is, again, the aspect of, these things take effort, and the aspect of evolution. And so thinking, okay, well, I tried putting it on, let's say, Slack or Discord or whatever tool you use for comms. Did it work? Did it get the desired effect that you're looking for in your organization? If so, great. If not, it doesn't mean that it was bad. But it means okay, well, let's try something else. Maybe I need to remind people more frequently. Maybe I need to put it on the calendar. Maybe it's a combination of these things. Actually, I'm quite an intense listener to podcasts and sometimes audiobooks and sometimes reading actual books. But I like doing stuff when I'm not on a screen or not sitting down, or etc. So I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. And just today was listening to one where it brought up some habits at Stripe, and how Stripe, literally, it was pretty much a daily basis where you could not go the day without hearing people talk about some aspect of their values or their principles or their regular repetitions daily. And I think this is something that people often feel like, or, I, as a leader, I told people, I mentioned something once and then they did it last week, but then they didn't this week. That's fine. This is normal part of human behavior. It doesn't mean that you're wrong or they're wrong or whatever. Building habits takes time and it takes reminders. And this is, people know this in their personal life. If I want to start a new exercise habit, it takes effort, and I have to, maybe I start and then I stop for a week, and then I think, okay, well, maybe I should put it on my fridge. Did that work? No. Well, maybe I need to put it on my bathroom mirror. Maybe I need to try in the morning versus in the evening. Like, if this is something that's important for you as an individual, don't give up. Keep experimenting until you get it right. If this is something that is important for you as an organization, don't give up. Keep experimenting until you get it right. And then even when you get it right, there's still going to be experimenting to keep evolving it. And that's just the nature of a team and building an organization and evolving. And it's not bad. It's just how it is. And that's great. Let's see that as exciting, as the opportunity of working with with my team, with our team, and saying, this is great. I get to share again that we're working on this. And like, we're here, you know, this is exciting. It's not bad.
Yeah, I think that openness to the fact that the world is always changing, this change is good and is opportunity, not constraint, is actually amazing. And I see there's a conversation here between Lana and Rhea about Secret Santa coming up, and Rhea gave a great idea, that the way that the team members are going to reveal who they got is by telling a riddle about them. I think that's really incredible. And I'll also do a bit of a shameless plug here, that Tala on our team actually wrote an article that should be coming out tomorrow. I hope I'm not overselling this, on ideas for how to wrap up the year and some holiday events that the team can do together. So we'll publish that tomorrow and put it in the comments here for those who want to read it. I see some new people have joined us. Hey, so nice to see you. So now we'll be our guest in a few weeks. And so I'm happy to see her amongst the audience as well. David, I have a question for you. Like, part of, why I thought also, I was sharing earlier when you dropped off, that one of the reasons why I also thought you were such a great person to ask about nurturing teams is because you don't just do it for your own team, but you do it for hundreds of others that you support, right? And you got to find ways to make these things more scalable and shareable. One of the themes that you guys have started communicating a lot about on your social media and talking about it and creating content and webinars and so on is the topic of well-being. And could you talk to us about why you chose this theme and how the people that you support are able to benefit from this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this has been an area of interest for us for many, many years. Going back to, both some personal experiences, and like everyone, we have the ups and downs of life. But then also I realized that I grew up in Silicon Valley. And I found out that the school that I went to, the town that I grew up in and the school that I went to, has higher rates of depression than, substantially higher than the average in the US. And then I found out actually that the village that my family is from in Lebanon also has higher rates of depression than average in Lebanon. And the thing that, one of the things that was similar about these is both of these are, fairly like places that have higher expectations of success, higher expectations of impact or whatever it is in life, sort of higher performing areas, higher education levels, etc. Why is it that places that have better education, that create these better opportunities for people to do things and grow and succeed, however we want to think about that, also have higher rates of depression? Now, I also found out through some of our work with accelerators around the world is that entrepreneurs also have higher rates of depression than the general population. This is an area where people who decide to take this choice of starting something, it can add a lot of pressure. It can be stressful. And so this has been an interest of ours for a long time. But then as things got more difficult in the world and in Lebanon, we realized that we need to even double down and triple down and think, okay, this is really important for our community, for our team, for the future of our country and region. This is affecting a lot of people. And what we realize is that people can be more generous. They can be more supportive of their communities, of their teams, when they are also taking care of themselves. You can't give if you've totally depleted yourself. And so we've been really thinking, how can we improve these efforts? On our team and with the teams that we work with and with our partners, and hopefully we can contribute. There are various organizations working on this. We're definitely not alone. But can we contribute to a momentum where this becomes the norm, where organizations and communities and societies better support well-being at these different levels, at the individual level and at the group level, in schools and in universities and in organizations and companies and nonprofits, etc. And we think this can have a really positive impact on our communities and countries and the direction that we go.
I think that's really incredible. And I encourage everyone who's listening to us today or in the future to go and follow you guys. And I found a lot of these resources to be, reassuring in moments where I needed them. And I'm very grateful for that. And I'm sure so is all of your community.
Awesome. Beautiful to hear.
Yeah. And on this note, we're coming close to the end of our session today. I know we could talk for another hour if that was the, there was space for that. But hey, this is second time, so maybe we'll have you over for a third time later. But
I'd
I
love
want to
to.
get us to our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right, let's go. So what is the one thing that every team needs?
The one thing that I'm not doing very well at the start of this rapid fire. What the heck? The one thing that every team needs is hugs.
Oh, love that. And if you're virtual?
Virtual hugs.
Nevertheless, there you go. Actually, like if you describe hugging someone to them, then they will feel hugged. So you can still do it.
Somehow. And of course, I know there are cultural sensitivities, and always, it's an invitation to a hug, and some people are excited about hugs and some people are not. So sometimes it's an elbow bump or something, but somehow communicating, caring, caring and support is how I think about a physical or a virtual hug.
Brilliant. What's the one thing a team needs to avoid?
Negativity and toxicity.
Yeah, I agree with that. A good team leader is?
A listener.
What's the best book on teams?
Gosh, there are a bunch of them. I mean, we are really enjoying the 4DX one, 4 Disciplines of Execution. Oh gosh, there are some others that come to mind, but that I feel like should come to mind. But I'll stick with that one for now. 4 Disciplines of Execution.
Okay, we'll take
the other one, by the way, that I do think about though is, and I think I mentioned it in the previous call, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, really, so much around teams is around supporting individuals, and so we're trying to see how we can, nurture the individual within the context of nurturing a team.
Brilliant. 2 recommendations for you then. And then what's your favorite team ritual?
I am really enjoying our, we have an all hands call on Mondays, and then we have other daily calls. I'd like really quick check-ins. I'm enjoying those, and it's this balance of work focus, but also helping everyone feel connected, especially since we are pretty much a fully remote team. We want people to really feel connected. Although actually one thing that we are having fun with is we have this thing on Zoom. We call it Bloom HQ, where we set up different offices, different rooms, like different meeting rooms within the same one, but where you can see different people in the rooms and then pop in and say hi to them. We frequently have one where we're putting music, and so people are co-working while listening to music together. So that's not like a scheduled ritual. It's more like a tool ritual, but it's a fun one.
Yeah, that's a great one. I definitely love working sessions. Remote is great, but it can get lonely. Sometimes you just want to hang with somebody. I think that's a really great ritual. Yeah. Well, on that note, David, I always call you David, and here you're Munir, so I'm going to call you.
Both work. Okay.
So on that note, Munir, I think, what's been great about our conversation today is, we spoke about a lot of things that people don't usually talk about when they're talking about performance. We spoke about connecting to purpose and impact and values. We spoke about happiness and learning and experimentation and well-being. And, for those of us who kind of have a more natural inclination towards engagement as our way of leading, I think this might sound, quite familiar, and they might be nodding with agreement. But I wanted to also speak to those of us who are more inclined towards the performance aspect of the job of a leader, and just mention a data point that I found this week while researching for an article. There's a survey that was conducted by Gallup where they interviewed 8,000 employees, and they found that actually the highest performing managers, so the leaders with the highest performing teams, and according to the assessment of their employees, are both performance and engagement focused. So employees who work with leaders who are both tough on the objectives and the goals, but quite focused on the engagement and the nurturing, are 17 times more likely to be engaged and higher performing. And I think that's such an important balance to strike, because if you're only focused on performance and you lose out on all the things that you and I spoke about today, then you're really not creating the best environment for your teams. And there's so much data around this, but I think, as the year is coming to an end and people are thinking about their performance evaluation and how to help people kind of aspire for what they want to achieve next year, then keep that in mind. Both things matter so much. And Munir, I want to thank you again for coming here and sharing all these insights and all the rituals and the practices that you and your team have together. And as always, a huge thank you to our attendees for tuning in and engaging. And I saw a lot of engagement around rituals and different, games that one could play or different events that could happen towards the end of the year. So really excited to see that level of engagement from the audience. I'm really grateful for your time as well, Munir.
Awesome. Thanks to you and the Cosmic Centaurs team. And hopefully, step by step, we keep building, wonderful, positive momentum for great work environments in the region and the world.
That's the plan. That's absolutely the plan. And shout out to the team at Cosmic. I always say this. I have the easy part. I just have to show up and try not to say anything stupid. But they're the ones doing all the hard work, writing the content, preparing for these sessions. And actually, over the next few weeks, we'll be publishing quite a bit of content. They've been working really hard. So it would mean the world to us if you could follow us if you don't already, or go on our website and sign up to our newsletter, or share with us some of the insights or best practices that you have that we could share with the world. Every piece of new learning is something that makes us excited. And then
Cool.
On that last note, mark your calendars. Next Thursday on November 25, we're going to try something new. So I'm going to be coming on here on my own, which I've never done before. I've always been the one asking questions mostly. And I'm going to be recapping, what I learned in this first chapter with our first wonderful guests, and telling some stories of my own and maybe sharing some insights and tips on how to really think about how your team dynamics work. And so if that sounds exciting to you, and tune in, it'll be next Thursday at same time, 3:30 UAE time. That would be 12:30 CET. And I look forward to seeing all of you there. And Munir, thank you so much for your time. I'll be signing us off.
Sounds good. Thanks.